came out with roots. And like all people of that time, they said, well, maybe I can do it. Maybe I can find where my family came from Africa. You know, we didn't know any better. There are no records of names of people from that. And you have to look around and do digging in other places. But at that time, the computer was just coming out. And now you're able to do a lot of research on the computer and get things. But when it first came out, my other son would show us how to use it, and naturally I got my wife to use it. So she was doing a lot of the work for it. Over the years, the success I had, or have, I would say if it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't have it. She was my right hand on doing anything. Sorry to say, well, she was originally one of the original members. Sorry to say, she's in a nursing home now. And I'm lost without her. I miss her because I'm in the house by myself. And that's one of the reasons I'm getting rid of a lot of material in the house. But I used to tell her, can you write a letter for me? Why don't you hire a secretary? I said, well, I will one day. But anyway, we did a lot of traveling. We traveled to Mount Vernon, Virginia. We traveled to upstate New York, Beacon and Poughkeepsie, and Peekskill. We traveled these places because I had information that my family had friends that came from these different places or settled in these different places. And so to get up to Beacon, the town right next to it is called Fishkill. It's a small town, and I've been in the library, I've been all the different places in there. So almost that they said, well, wasn't you here last year this time? I said, yeah. So I got some information from there. But the biggest thing that I wanted to know was how my great-great-great-grandfather, his name was George Washington, how he got from Virginia all the way up there in New York. And I don't know why or when. You know, generally when a family goes somewhere, they have a cousin, an aunt, or somebody who lives there, and they say, come on up. But to my knowledge, he was the first one up there. And as I said, I enjoyed going around on these trips. I felt that I was very happy when I could go in the basement of the city hall, dirty and dusty, looking at books and records and things like that. And for what I have now, I'm very happy with the information I have, because I felt that I did it myself, and I did it the hard way. Now, you tell somebody something, and they'll get on a phone like that and get the answer for you in 5 minutes. But back there then, you had to go to these various locations. And going back a little bit, the National Archives was located in Bayonne, New Jersey, at the military transportation facilities. So that was right down the road from where I lived. So I used to go there quite often. They had all the census, they had other kind of records. So I was there one day, and I met this gentleman who was speaking. And I told him what I would like to do, and he said call anytime and he would help me out or whatever. His name is Jimmy Walker. He's the founder of this organization. And I consider him the father of modern day black genealogy. The mother, I consider, her name was Jean Sampson Scott. But I've been to both places. I've been to her home up in Mount Vernon when a group was being organized. So at one time I was a member of the New York chapter and this chapter. But she was very gentle and kind, and she gave me clues and how to do this and how to go about it and get different things. The other person that really helped me along with, and starting along, was Professor Charles Bloxham. Anybody ever hear of him?
Yeah.
He wrote a book on doing African or Negro genealogy. And one day my wife and I was in New York. We went to see a play in the Times Square area, and we was a little early. And there was a Dalton bookstore on the other side of the street. So we went up over there to spend some time, and they had a get rid of table, everything in there for $1. And I found his book. And now I doubt if you could find it anywhere, but it gave me all the basic information that I wanted to know, how to go get the census records, how to get this record and that record. And a few years ago, he was at the conference as one of the guest speakers. But he was a very, man, you don't know how much somebody pushes you along. And I say the three people, Charles Bloxham, Jimmy Walker, and Gene Sampson Scott, for why I'm standing here today, talking about family and whatnot. And I think that as you go along, people that are interested in genealogy or history, you have to drag somebody else along with you and start them going. I look around and I see nicely dressed people. I know that you probably own your own car. I know you probably you have your own home. And I know that you have education. And I thought about that for a few years. There was a woman I met at a party, and it got around that I was doing history search. And she came up to me and she said, "Why are you doing this kind of research? These people are all dead. They're not here anymore." And the best answer I could give at that time was, I want to know who my ancestors were and where they came from and what they did. But if I was to run into her now and she would ask me the same question, I would say, matter of fact, she asked me how long would it take me to finish. And I said, probably the rest of my life, because she never finished.
That's right.
But if I ran to a person today and asked me that question, I would tell them this: all you folks sitting here, you owe a debt. Now, our ancestors came over in a slave ship under horrible conditions. They were snatched out of their villages, they were marched to the ocean, they saw this big, I don't know what they could call it, a ship sitting in the sea. They was put on that slave ship. Regardless of who they were and how they were in the community. They was put on the slave ship, and probably 100 people on there. They was packed in there like sardines. No health facilities, no hygiene facilities. Women and children packed in there like I don't know what. So, most of them got seasick on the way coming back to the States. But if you can imagine being in a hole where you can't even stand up and you have a chain around you, and you pray that Allah or the Lord will take you away from this. Mm-hmm. Some of the people, when they took them up on deck on a nice day to make them move around and exercise, some of the people couldn't take it any longer. When they unchained the cuffs on them, they jumped overboard, commit suicide. They just couldn't take it anymore. But the ship eventually reached a port. I wouldn't say it was in Cuba, Brazil, or the United States, but one of these ports. And they put them into what you'd call a slave dungeon, where at least had open air, and they had clean air to breathe. And they made them wash with the seawater. Then they gave them coconut oil to make their bodies glisten, to make them look better. And after about 2 or 3 days, they called an auction. But in the meantime, these people were eating mush and grain and things like that, and thinking that if you eat that all day and you're bound to become sick. I don't know how the women made out. There was a couple of women on the ships, I presume, that were pregnant. They didn't care anyway, anything for them. But anyway, the day of sale came, and the one who would make or sell at the highest price was a young man between 18 and 25 who had good muscles in his leg, a good back. He could do good work. He would get the highest price. Next after that was young children, young boys between 13 and 16. They looked at them boys and say, well, they can be trained, they will grow up to be a strong person and they can work in the field. Then came the women. Now the women, they looked at them as a third party. The women who had, say, looked healthy enough that they could bear children, that was a plus, because if a woman come to a slave area and had 2 or 3 children, that means the boss or who owns the plantation would have extra hands eventually so that they could work. That was one of the assets of the women there. The other one of the assets of, that if they had large breasts, they could use them for milkmaids, and they used them in that area. But everything was taken away from them, their dignity and everything. So what I say to you and to me, I think that we owe a debt, because the people that did survive the crossing to the New World and was able to get along, they were strong people. There was a lot of people who died coming over. But these people are our ancestors. And we are sitting here today because these people were strong, they survived. And if you look at it, that probably your great-great-great-grandfather was one of these people. And from there, they were separated from the family. The woman might be bought for one price and she went that way. Her husband and children might be for another price and they went that way. Never to see each other again. And that must have been a horrible condition. But again, as I said, they were strong people. And by saying they were strong people, you can look around the room now and see that they survived and they had children and their children had children and their children had children. So here we are sitting today, we're living the American dream. We have our own home, we have a car, or maybe 2 cars, we had a decent job, we have children or grandchildren that we have going to college. And so if you look at it, I say we owe these people a debt, because I think that if it wasn't for them and their hardship and their suffering, we certainly wouldn't be sitting here today. And so anytime things get a little rough, I say, well, it's not too pleasant right now, but these people survived and made it. There was only one recognized mutiny on a ship that I know of, on a ship. You probably saw the movies, and I can't think of the name of it right
Amistad. Amistad.
Amistad. Yeah. So that's the way it was then. But 2 things that served me. I look at a lot of our young women, and they're walking around the streets with big earrings, big loop earrings, And those loop earrings were designed that they put on the women, bang them on the women, and that was a way they could reach into a crowd and grab them by the ring and pull them up. When they was walking somewhere, they would run a rope through the earring that they all were in a line. They rather use the earring rather than chain, because a chain, they use that or left that for the men. So I look at a lot of our young people today and say, you really don't know where that came from. And another thing I'm disturbed about is tattoos. Now, back in those days, if you went to a plantation, the plantation would either tattoo or brand you with the mark of who you were and where you belong. But now, it seems to be a fashion thing. Some people say, oh, it don't mean anything, whatnot. That's your life, do what you want with your body. But I would like to say that tattoos originally started in the Pacific, the Hawaiian Islands, and the kings and the queens were the only people allowed to have tattoos on them. But now I see little people, 13, got all kinds of things up there on wrist and whatnot. So my kids didn't get any tattoos, right, son?
As of now.
But I think things like that, once they got tattooed, they would be marked or probably for life or branded for life. And they couldn't get rid of that. Now also, what I'm thinking about is that, as I said, we're sitting here, we're nicely dressed, and we had probably a good life. Probably we might be annoyed that, oh, I can't get that suit I wanted or dress I want, which is nothing. I mean, these people didn't have anything. And we have to be around to tell their story. Their story is his story, meaning history. And I think that we have to tell each other and tell our young people what their ancestors went through so that he could run down the street and with a phone or a game or something like that, you have to appreciate where you came from. I have many ailments, health ailments, and sometimes I get depressed and I start mourning to myself and I get blue. My best friend isn't here anymore. My wife, she's in a nursing home. She has dementia, and when I go see her on Saturdays, generally, she doesn't know me or anything. And I look and think, I said, you know, life isn't too pleasant. But then again, I don't have pain. I got both hands, I got both legs. They don't operate too good sometimes. But I try and pull out that blue spell and think that these people suffer much more than I could possibly suffer. So I try and sit down once a day and have a little mental outlook to think what I want to do today or whatnot, or think about different people in the family, that how can I find out where he was and whatnot. And it's kind of hard for me now. Before I used to be able to ask my wife's opinion. Well, what do you think on this? What do you think he did on this? Now, I can't talk, or I do talk, but I don't get no answers. And that makes it a little difficult. I have some other material here that I'd like to pass around to you.
Lloyd, can I ask you a question?
Excuse me?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What would you like us to remember you for?
I'm sorry, I don't hear that well.
You were very active with this group.
Yeah.
What accomplishment would you like us to remember you by?
Well, I would just say that I would like to be remembered as a person to try to do good. The most important thing to me is my family. And I tell my children, I have 2 daughters and a son now. I lost my youngest son a year ago due to sickness. And I want them to know that if they ever have a problem, come here and tell me as a member, the senior member of the family. At one time, we would meet at my house on Sunday and we'd have what we call a brunch. We had friends and relatives come there. And you could sit down and have coffee and say whatever you felt like saying or ask questions. And the older people in the family would suggest that you do this or do that. And that one worked along very well. I thought that, it went along very well. But knowing that Sunday is a busy day for people, they have the church to go to, they have the clothes to get ready for Monday so we couldn't do it like every Sunday. But at the point that we had there, I always made it a point to have a story of history that happened. And I would tell them different events, that happened in history. And I thought it went very well. Right, kids?
Yes. Yeah.
But I think it might be something that you might try. We can't give a family reunion. I think I'm the oldest one in the family and there's not too many people left. But you should try and get together once in a while and say, how you doing, Mary? How's the job coming along? How are you making out in life? And things like that. And they may ask you questions, well, what would you do in such and such? You give your opinion and your advice. That don't say they have to take it, but at least you can air it. And I think that if we communicate with our family, I think we will be better off. There's a lot of kids out there that are lost. They're busy shooting each other up and things like that. They don't realize that there's only 2 places they're going to go, the graveyard or the prison for the rest of their life. And if we can get to our younger people and tell them about the glorious history of their family. Everybody had a glorious history. Yes, we all had families that had, say, skeletons in the closet. And they said, well, what do you want to know that for? Man, you want to be embarrassed about that? I said, no, this is part of life. Everybody had these people in their family. And we should, be able to move on from that. But I think the young people of today, we have to grab them by the hand and say, listen, put that phone down or that game down. Let me talk to you a few minutes about different things in life. Because actually, we as parents are preparing them for their future. Eventually that they will have to face their future and learn how to do things on their own. So the more we can tell them what to do and what not to do, the better off they'll be. If you have a child, you always want them to come to you with the good news and share the bad news with you. It can't be any worse than what you did when you was young. But if there's nobody in the house, maybe a single mother that's pulling her hair out where she's going to get the food to eat the next day, she don't know how to do this. So we as adults have to look into our children, our neighbors, our cousins, our nephews, or people like that. We have to try and guide them and show them a way. The young men, it's going to come a time when you're going to have to go out and look for a job. Now, if you go looking for a job your hair looks all out of order, you look a mess, you got a hoodie on or something like that. Boys don't want to hire people like that. They want to hire people that's going to look good for their company. So we try and tell them to dress right. And if you have to wear a tie and a shirt sometime, do it. That's part of the uniform of big business. Yes, I know we all have a dress down Friday and everything like that. But there's always a nice time when we can look very good.
Oh, he was just answering.
Oh, I see, all right. I have more film.
I'll pass this around to her.